apologies if my sickness makes this guided meditation less peaceful in any way, given the lack of peace happening at the cellular level of my body. Anyway, what better time to meditate than a time in which there is a bit of room to be more peaceful on the level of our body, in the world around us, in the mind. There can be a lot of divisiveness over our shared identities. We all have values and principles that we hold close to our heart. Sometimes they can be in conflict with each other. There is a lot of conflict in the world right now. And no meditation is going to change that. And no meditation is necessarily going to change ourself either. But we can take this time to expand the level of our acceptance and presence to include maybe a little bit more of the conflicts going on. A kind of love and acceptance which allows for the humanity to be imperfect and yet continually improving upon itself without the need to be anywhere else than in the process that it's already a part of. So if that interests you, let us take 3 conscious breaths. Breath is always the first thing that you can return to when wanting to center yourself, because it's one of the beautiful parts of this experience which, unless we're conscious of it, is involuntary, and when we're conscious of it, becomes voluntary. Our body is generally pretty good at keeping up with the breaths, but sometimes it can breathe in a way that doesn't necessarily express the side of your nervous system you want to experience, since our breath is so intimately tied with that. When we're unconscious of our breathing, it might be very shallow, inconsistent, sporadic, shaky. It might not be so smooth. Your breath could be very fast. All of this creates a certain energy in our nervous system that responds appropriately. Circumstances where you would ever need such breathing or have to breathe like that are probably circumstances that engage your sympathetic nervous system, which is your flight or fight response. And you can look around you and you can ask yourself, is there anything that I need to flee from or fight? And most people's answer to that question, probably includes you, is no. There's nothing I need to fight right now or flee from. Therefore, I can engage another part of my nervous system which is better suited for what I can do right now, such as rest or digest, which is the name for the parasympathetic nervous system response. That is usually engaged when your body is breathing deeply. Smooth, consistent, natural breathing. Sometimes it can take a while to shift from the sympathetic to parasympathetic, and that's okay because there's absolutely no timeline. The alternative is staying in the sympathetic nervous system. Whatever goodness is available, no matter how long it takes, that is always preferable than not. This kind of breathing is perfect for meditation. In meditation, there's nothing to fight or run away from. Meditation is all about resting and digesting, both physically, but also mentally. Our mind needs to rest too and digest. Instead of digesting physical food, it needs to digest what it received in the forms of sound and touch and sights, and that may include all the stories that we've heard from the day. It may include things from long ago in our past that we still haven't fully processed. If I hand you a cucumber, it's not necessarily going to improve your life. If I give you a watermelon, it might just take up room in your fridge. Carrying it is heavy. We are wise enough to know that if we process food, it becomes useful. But by itself, a watermelon, a cucumber, just being in your house is not necessarily contributing to anything other than the possibility of having a meal later. Similarly, having undigested thoughts, memories, and ideas don't actively contribute to our life. Just like holding a watermelon or a cucumber, whatever. Just holding on to it isn't going to give you any nutrients. Now, continue to breathe consciously, returning to your breath whenever you notice that you forget, without judging yourself for forgetting. It's a part of the meditation to remind yourself. We're wise enough to recognize that even if something isn't giving me the feeling of flavor on my tongue and giving me energy and calories and good vitamins, just seeing fruit, you know that it has that potential. There is still room for us to become aware of the nutrients that exist in our thoughts and memories. Just like when we were younger, the vegetables were the kinds of food that we didn't want to eat, that didn't taste good. It was uncomfortable to continue to eat the next broccoli or Brussels sprout or whatever. But yet, a higher power, namely our parents probably, told us that it was good for us, and eventually we discovered that value. so too. Those of higher authority in the spiritual sense, they tell us too. All of the negative things that have happened to you are like vegetables. At first, it doesn't seem like they're of any sustenance, and you would like only what tastes good to your eyes and ears and mind and skin and tongue and nose. But not all that tastes good is healthy. Similarly, not always living a life full of positivity is nourishing spiritually. Sometimes we require nutrients that can only be found in things that we might not want to eat first. So too, some of the memories that we have that are yet unprocessed, yet undigested in the spiritual fire of awareness, remain. And we have the ability to transform those thoughts into energy, into nourishment. And in the same way that our body takes nourishment from vegetables by breaking them down piece by piece and then reassembling them in a way that helps this body, so too we can break down our memories piece by piece, just a little bit at a time, and then we find the essence, the nectar, the importance of experiencing that, the meaning, the value. Even if at first it was not enjoyable, in the long term we experience the benefits from the building blocks we've deconstructed from that memory, and we've put back together in newer and newer ways. We can take the energy of our history and shape it to become all future mystery. Conscious breathing. Return to the breath. Being human certainly requires a lot of trial and error. We spat our vegetables out many, many times before we finally realized that they're not for the dog. That yes, actually we are meant to eat them, in the same way that yes, we are meant to experience uncomfortable things, but not because it's poison, even though it might taste like it, but actually because our palate hasn't been refined to the point of recognizing the value in it. Sometimes we have to go outside our comfort zone and expand our palate to be able to increase the amount of nourishment that we get. This applies to the experiences of life too, and in the acceptance of the experiences we've had already. Conscious breathing, letting each breath inhale acceptance and breathe out anything that is no longer serving you. See, a lot of people live like that, where they spit out all the vegetables, but as a result, their health becomes sacrificed. Spiritually, spitting out all the vegetables means that you don't take time to process the negativity that has existed in your mind, your past, and the world around you. Spitting it out means repressing it, or blocking us from experiencing anything of that sort any further. Now, this is no time to judge yourself for doing so. You were absolutely valid to set the boundaries that you did at the time. In that moment, you were not ready to process this feeling. That you hid yourself from the reality of the world because you were not ready to process it. That's okay. It's not about doing something you should have long ago. It's about being proud of yourself for finally being at a place where it is possible and going through with that. Being human is not a test of perfection. It's truly a test of imperfection. How imperfect can the world be, and yet your spirit remains unconquered? The true test is not in making everything around you and in you perfect, but to recognize the value of a limited experience, of a world that has problems, yeah, but problem solvers like you. And perfection doesn't come from the solution just already being there. It is a process of continuing to solve the problems that occur around us, not to make this moment into anything different, but because that's what it means to be alive. You live for the purpose of reaching for that next rung, for looking back and seeing how far you've come, not to get anywhere that you weren't, but simply because the most rewarding life is one where you allow yourself to be human. And that means making mistakes. That means having time between the experience and when you finally are ready to process it. It means being smack dab in the middle of the process, far from any destination. Conscious breathing. Allow each breath to fill you up and empty you. Being human is difficult. But we don't do things because they're easy. We do things to challenge the status quo. We do things to challenge ourselves. We engage in the world to discover what's possible, not to reach a conclusion, but to discover the next reach of the infinite. There's no wrong way to be human. Even if you've made a mistake which the world can't seem to forgive, that's human. Our humanness includes all of our limitations. Our humanness is what provides us the scaffolding for something higher to transcend us. For us to put together something bigger than the whole, so that we feel a part of something meaningful. You could make mistakes your whole life and never learn. But that doesn't mean you're any less human. The life you live must be perfect for you, no matter what happens. But that's not to say allowing our humanness should ever bring in room for a lack of engagement in the world. Because part of being human also means inspiring others to transcend their limitations. Whether they do or not, they're still human. Whether you are successful or not, you're still human. And our humanity isn't defined by what we succeed or fail in, but in the fact that we give it a shot. And that's all we're ever doing. We certainly are not human beings having a spiritual experience, but spiritual beings having a human experience. And because this is a deep, mystical choice that we have made, you must be allowed to be human. Please give yourself that allowance. And take 3 more final, deep, and very human breaths. You may not be this body and mind, but that doesn't mean it's not a part of you. And it's a very beautiful part of you. Thank you for listening.